In this video, I'm going to delve right into some specific examples of how to implement Bayes' theorem based on some likely cases. Here is a situation that has been brought to national attention in recent years. High school and college athletes collapse and die mid-game for no apparent reason. They are otherwise healthy young individuals and never seem to really have any previous heart-related issues. Yet one condition, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM for short, is the leading cause of sudden death in these young individuals. The disease is characterized by abnormal artery thickening, which pressures the heart tremendously when attempting to pump blood throughout the body. For young athletes during a game or event, this condition becomes a central possibility. So, what is the likelihood that a young individual who comes in to seek advice actually has the disease, given a positive test result? Well, let's say a 19-year-old male individual comes in specifically to clinic to seek advice. Well, the prevalence rate for this disease is 1 in 500. The cheaper, most widely used method right now to diagnose HCM is the echocardiogram, or echo for short. The average sensitivity and specificity ratios hover around 86% and 94.7%, respectively. Keep in mind that these numbers vary across different publications and studies, as well as changing with time. Well, given this information, let's implement Bayes' theorem using what we know. So what variables do we need to understand to be able to use Bayes' theorem? Well, as a short review from the previous video, we have three variables, A, B1, and B2. A represents the event that a disease diagnosis yields a positive test result. B1 represents the event that the disease actually occurs in the patient. And lastly, B2 represents that the event that the disease does not occur in the patient. So, looking into the equation, PB1 would be the probability that the disease actually occurs in the patient. In other words, this is our prevalence. For HCM, this would be 1 in 500. PB2 represents the probability that the disease does not occur in the patient. This would simply be 1 minus our prevalence rate, given the information we know right now. So that is 499 out of 500. What does PA given B1 stand for? Well, that represents the probability that a test is positive given the fact that the disease actually occurs in the patient. This, in other words, is our sensitivity rate, the true positive rate. Based on our numbers, this is 86%. And lastly, PA given B2, the probability that a positive test given the fact that a disease does not occur. Now, this would be a false negative rate, or, in other words, 1 minus the specificity. Based on these numbers, that would be about 5.3%. Our first derivation tells us that there is only a 3.15% probability that the patient has the disease after one positive test result. Let's do a second test, and reusing Bayes' theorem, let's see if 2 positive test results are enough to confirm the presence of the disease in the patient. This time, we will use our previous probability as our current understanding and then generate a new posterior probability. So, PB1, which we previously used as our prevalence rate, is now going to be 3.15%. PB2 is still 1 minus PB1, or 96.85%. P of A given B1 will remain our sensitivity ratio, or 86%. And then P of A given B2 will be based on our specificity value, or 94.7%. By getting a second positive test result, we observe a 34.54% likelihood that the patient has the disease. By reusing that value, if we get a third positive test result, we can see that there's an 89.54% likelihood that the patient has the disease. And if we get a fourth positive test result, we get to a very ideal 99.3% likelihood that the patient has the disease. Based on Bayes' theorem, a physician should run 4 echo tests before confidently confirming the presence of HCM in a patient. This disease, though much more expensively, can be tracked through genetic mutations. The MYBPC3 gene codes for a myosin-binding protein that is found in cardiac cells. Its genetic mutations, though, account for 40% of all genetic defects that cause HCM. Other genetic mutations, spanning over about 10 genes, can all be tracked with 99.9% sensitivity and specificity through DNA testing. With Bayes' theorem, we found that about 2/3 of the time, the patient will have the disease given that one positive test result. For every 3 people who get a positive test result, 1 will still not even have the disease. A seemingly okay ratio to some, but not to a physician who wants complete certainty in the diagnosis. If the second test yielded another positive test result, we could confirm that with 99.95% accuracy, the patient has the disease. This is a very satisfying value that a doctor could use to confidently present the diagnosis. But realize that we got to this confidence level after 2 DNA tests. This was one of the most concrete and accurate ways of tracking down a mutation that could characterize HCM. Thanks for watching, and feel free to post questions and clarifications in the comments section below. I look forward to seeing all the future endeavors that people take with using Bayes' theorem in medicine.